Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
The sounds of the season can often sound like this.
So, when are we getting some grandkids?
But with Hilton's Season to Stay sale, they could sound a bit more like this. Or this. Stay and save up to 20% off when you book before January 5th at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay. Minimum 2-night stay required. Excludes luxury and all-inclusive properties. Terms and conditions apply.
Whole Foods Market has Thanksgiving gatherings covered. First things first, reserve your no antibiotics ever fresh whole turkey today, starting at $2.99 a pound. Or go with their organic spiral cut bone-in ham, full of seared-in flavor. For sides, choose Whole Foods Market grab-and-go platters. Go even further and get your whole meal catered. Just order online by November 26th. Get Thanksgiving ready at Whole Foods Market. Terms apply.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels, or at least this week, my writing.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm excited to welcome back Savannah Gilbo, developmental editor and podcaster. We had you on the podcast before, and we teased out that you would help me with my query letter, and here we are, querying it up, and you read the first chapter, and we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I'm so excited. This is something that I do with writers all the time. So I'm very excited to help you figure out what we can, what's working, what's not working, and what we can change.
Well, last time you broke my brain because you were the one who was like, this is women's fiction. And I was like, gosh,
oh, is it?
Darn it. And so I went back and rewrote a lot of things in there. And it makes a lot more sense. I had a lot more fun writing it because I wasn't trying to be something. Like I thought it had to be a rom-com, so I was trying to hit those rom-com beats.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I get to be as depressing as I want.
There you go. Your aim in life, right?
Yeah, I do sad very well.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I have a question for you. So I sent you feedback yesterday. You sent me your pages. I sent you notes. What did it feel like getting feedback? Was it your first time? Like, talk to me about that.
So back in my bachelor's, I did creative writing, right? And you have a short story, and in that short story, that's when you get all the feedback. What was hard with that is that it's a short story. You don't have it's not a book. It's not chapters. I looked at it and I was like, one, there's a reason why you do what you do. It's like freaking genius. And everything you wrote, I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And then to the point where I was like, have I never read a book in my life? What did I do wrong? I was texting Amy and I was saying I think I need to get writing books for dummies or something, because everything that you said, I'm I know in the recesses of my brain, we do a freaking literary analysis, but we're over here talking about the flowers represent their past and all these lovely things. And I'm just like, oh my God. And that first chapter really is critical for the whole book. And yeah, it was great. Your notes are everything made sense. Every single thing made sense. And I can already see the elevation of it. And I just walked away being like, Jack, you know better than this, Well,
just to make you feel better too. So there's a lot of things I want to say, but as someone who is an editor, when I write fiction, I need someone to point out the things that I pointed out for you. Okay. So I can't do that for myself.
Okay.
So to expect yourself to do that, I think might be a little, little too high of expectations.
All right. That's good.
Yeah. So very normal. And then the other thing too, is when I read your pages, the quality of them were really good. So there's drafts that I read that, they're messy first drafts, or they're still trying to figure out what they are. I feel like yours is beyond that now. So actually it's a good thing, but there's still things we can do to improve it.
Yes.
I think this also kind of points to why it's important to choose who we get feedback from. Cause there's a lot of writers that they'll get the drafts to the state you have yours in, and they'll be like, I can't believe I've gone through like 3 different writing groups and critique partners and no one ever pointed these things out.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but this is my job to do that, right? Like I've had training, I've had all this stuff. So it just kind of speaks to the, be careful who you ask feedback from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I haven't taken this to a group or anything. Like my friend has been helping me with everything
Yeah.
and she's been great. But like, there are just things that I like the one in my, like one of your notes that like still resonates that I like went to bed thinking. And it was like the first thought of like, I thought of this morning was, it's page 4 and this is your inciting
Inciting
incident.
incident. Yeah.
And you're like, maybe we should bring this up. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like literally, you're the professional. So
Yeah.
you know that.
Well, and just for people who are listening that don't know what an inciting incident is, that's like the first little blip of conflict. And we can get into this more later. But because it's on page 4, right, that's coming a little late. So we always want our opening pages, like Jack said earlier, the first chapter is super important. Well, your first page and your second page are like way, way important. So we want that exciting stuff to be happening as soon as we possibly can. So that was one of my notes, like, hey, this is on page 4, and we're going to get into it more later. But if it's okay with you, Jack, I wanted to take you through like how I looked at your pages.
Yes, please.
Because I think this will show you kind of where my thought process is, and then you can troubleshoot your own pages next time.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so can I share my screen with you?
Yeah, I would love it. And if anyone wants to know what we're looking at, stay tuned for the YouTube episode of this so you can see everything.
YouTube. There you go.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Okay, yes, thank you.
All right. I have to say, this is one of the single most painful. Writing this out was, I don't want to say soul-sucking. I don't want to be dramatic, but I also don't want to not be dramatic. Like it was a doozy.
Right. It's hard for everybody. Think about why it's hard too. You're trying to summarize 80,000 words at least, usually more, a little more, into something that's 1 to 2 pages long and, entice an agent, make sure you're hitting all the things you need to hit in a query letter. So it's not easy. So for listeners who maybe don't know what a query letter is, this is like Jack's done with her book and she's saying, okay, I'm going to take my book out in the world. I'm going to try to connect with a literary agent who, let's say like I find one who likes my book, then they're going to help me take it to a publishing house and hopefully get my book published with one of those houses. So that's the goal of what this query letter is. And what she had to do was basically summarize her story, but also like introduce her story to the agents. And then at the end, she talks about like, who is Jack and what are her, what's her past like and things like that.
And I heard like, you have to like kind of make it show the personality. You should, even if it's like, suddenly I'm like, I don't have a personality. I don't know. My characters have none. I can't show this. Like, you want me to summarize and be interesting?
Yeah, it's really hard. So again, you're not alone thinking it's hard and struggling. Everybody does. So what I first started with was this. And I said, okay, I only know what you told me the other time we recorded together. Forgot a lot of it. So that was good, actually.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I kind of wanted to come with a blank slate. So I said, okay, if I'm an agent, what am I looking for? Right. The first thing I want to know is like, why did this person query me? And I know this is a work in progress. So like that would come kind of before this first paragraph. It's like, agent, I chose you, or I'm querying you today because XYZ. I saw on Twitter you want, stories like mine, whatever. So we want to know like, why is this person querying me? What genre your story falls into? What's the word count? And, they look at that because is it complete? Is it within the range I work with? Things like that. So that'll all go kind of in your paragraph before your summary. And then like also your comp titles, which you have down below, which we can talk about in a second. And the reason why the agent needs this opening paragraph that you're going to add is they want to know like, do I even work in this genre?
Yeah.
If your story is 150,000 words, I'm probably going to automatically reject you because that's way too long for, commercial stories these days. If they don't resonate with your comp titles, so this for readers or listeners who don't know what those are, they're titles like Jack's book that are already in the market. So agents can kind of say like, where does this sit on the shelf? How can I kind of make marketing plans for this? So they might not resonate, or they might really resonate with your comp titles, and they're like, okay, this is for me or it's not. So they're already thinking that way in the first paragraph. And so this is why these letters are so hard and so important, right? Because we want them to say, okay, sounds good so far. Let me move to the next paragraph, which is your story summary. So then from here, we want to know, like, okay, the agent's thinking, is this like the hook of the story compelling? Do I want to know more about it? Does the story appear to work based on this summary? Does it appear complete based on this summary? Right. So we can go through Jack's summary in a second. And then at the very end, the agent's looking for, okay, Jack, at the bottom of her query, she put that she hosts Book Talk for Book Talk, and, she does all these things. And so they're looking at that paragraph saying, does this person communicate with potential readers already? Because that's going to help with marketing and things like that. And then, at the very, very end, they're thinking, do I want to read the pages? And if it's a no, they're not going to read your pages. It's already going to be a rejection.
Yeah.
So no pressure.
And then,
right.
And then I remember you asked me specifically, hey, like, can send me like the first 5. And I said, I will give you 8. So
yeah,
like I can, even when I've seen some of these like agents, they ask for like first 3, first 5, if that.
Right. Yeah, because they want to see if you know what you're supposed to be doing, and you're getting that hook or that exciting thing in the first couple pages. So if we went out with the way that your pages are, Jack, we don't have that thing till page 4. Yeah. So if they were getting to that kind of first blip of conflict on page 4 and they only asked for page 3, it would be a rejection, right? No matter how pretty your writing is, or like how cool the summary sounded, or things like that.
Yeah.
Remind me, have you queried this before?
I tested it to only, luckily, just 5 agents. Like I just I dipped my toe and I said, this is horrible. And then fortunately, I think I spoke to you the next day. So I held off. I was like, okay, that's fine.
Kind of good timing.
It was like freakishly good timing. Like, it was, everything worked out perfectly. And I have had the rejections from those, and I wanted to be like, no, like I actually was panicking because I was like, no, it was a rom-com before and now it's not. So like, that you don't want to see this.
Yeah. Which is, funny, because now I think we've identified some reasons why maybe it was getting rejected. So, the reason I wanted to start with the query letter is just because Jack's gotten 5 rejections doesn't mean her story sucks. It is just like they're probably rejecting based on the query letter or based on those opening pages. It says nothing about the quality of the rest of your story. So I think that's important to remember, because, sometimes I work with writers and same situation happens. They get 5, 10, 15 rejections. We fix the query, we fix the opening pages, and it's like, then they start finding matches.
Yeah.
So other times there are, we need to fix the query and the opening pages and the story. So, just depends.
Fortunately, I was more of like relieved when I got those, because I was like in pure panic mode at that point, where I was like, no, let me fix this.
Which is really interesting too, because I feel like when you were trying to query as a rom-com, you had like internal resistance.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, we need to listen to those gut feelings, even if you don't know the answer to why you're having it.
I thought it was food poisoning. It was a real gut
feeling. Which like literally then happened. But okay. So with kind of that mindset, we can then look at your query and say, okay, knowing that an agent needs to like really feel like every paragraph needs to check a box for them. And so we can read through this. And like one of the first things I saw was, okay, we have in your first paragraph, it's about Olivia. And then we go to the love interest, who's Liam. And so when I read that, I'm like, okay, this reads like a romance query.
Yeah.
Because usually in a romance, there's dual point of view, and it's like, woman or whoever, protagonist 1 meets protagonist 2. And then the third paragraph's like their conflict. But if this is truly a women's fiction story, it should read from Olivia's perspective.
So the question there is that this is dual point of view. So we do get Liam's perspective, but like he's a main character, but not as main as Olivia.
Right. Which, for some agents that could be a problem, or it could be fine. I still, because, usually in women's fiction, it's about the woman.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, I think let's put that on pause for a second. And, or maybe we don't put it on pause, because that is one of the things I wanted to ask you. Like, I feel like I feel like part of your query in your draft might still have that identity crisis a little bit. Like, are we romance or are we women's fiction?
I feel like that Taco Bell commercial that's like the little kid that's like, why not both? Like,
Why not both?
it's,
Yeah.
because I do like the romance of it, but the reason why this one was like, some of my friends were bringing it up as an issue, and I think this was one of the first things that like sparked it for you, that you flagged it also, is that it's a duology, so it's like book 1, book 2, and the first book does not end with them together.
Right.
And it talks a lot about like her body image issues, some of her mental health, like, facing rejection and all this stuff. And, he's important to the story. And I think like getting his perspective is important to the story because, he's not like some kind of like douchebag tool,
Right.
either. And it is like it's about her, but it's also about their friendship and their romance. So
Right.
struggle.
Yeah. And so it can be both in theory, but if I'm an agent, I want to know where I'm going to place this. Right.
Yeah.
So when if we said it's romance, let's just play with this angle for a second.
Yeah.
Then we could structure this with his arc of change. And, then we'd face the problem of, well, they're not coming together at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like, does not compute into romance. Right.
Yeah.
If we're going the women's fiction angle, it's like, okay, why do I have his,
Point of view
in the query? It can maybe exist in the story. That's like a problem for another day. But at least in the query, it's like, if this is about her, we need to have him be a piece of her story, but not like equal footing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I would do, because there's little notes in here, but that was like one of the first things that flagged me is I'm like, this reads like a romance.
Yep.
Not that it can't have romance pieces. So what I would do is I would restructure this and I would say like, here's Olivia. She's our protagonist. She, because I know she goes to London. We get that near the end of your first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my big questions here that'll help us fill in the blanks is like, what is she actually doing? Because there's a part, let's see. Now Olivia's dreams are finally coming true. Everything she worked for is within reach. So like, are things coming true or is she like actively doing them?
So it is a little bit of a both situation where she the goal is for her to go get her master's and then apply to this internship. The internship process, like just the application for the internship, takes months. And that's like the first book where it's like, again, I'm like, my book, I'm going to make this internship as unrealistic as possible. But like, it's, so it's like the internship application process is a really long time. And that's like the first book. And it is very much a, like, if she gets this internship, then at the end of the internship, they select someone to be an employee. And if they're international, then they'll cover their visa. So it's kind of like, this is the route to move, to stay, and to be with this publishing agency.
Okay. So when she's pursuing the internship, what is she doing? Is she working?
So she's working on her master's, and then the pursuit of internship, I have it split into like 3 interview process. So like initially this isn't even like the first process is just like applying like with an essay, and then she gets accepted to the as a candidate, and then there's interview 1, interview 2, and then the last one is like an essay, almost like interview 3 type of thing. And that's when at the very, very end, when everything else is kind of like falling apart, that's when she gets accepted. And that's also kind of where she's like, these boys be stupid. I'm over it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's important to know. And I think that's, it sounds like a good thing to fill in your plot, which I remember saying to you last time, your plot sounds like it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So she's going, and let me like poke holes in this.
Yes.
Does she have to go to London to do this stuff?
Yes, that's where the internship is.
Okay. So she can't do it virtually.
No.
Why not?
Because it's a UK publishing company, and you'd be interning in their office that's in London.
But okay, so technically she couldn't even do that until the end of the book, though, right?
The application process or the
internship.
The actual internship is going to be for book 2. Book 1 is the interview process. Like she's applied now. It's like through the interviews, and those are in-person interviews.
Okay, so she there's no. I just want to make sure
Yeah. No,
because
no, poke
if
away.
we don't
Poke
poke
away.
holes, readers will poke
Yeah.
holes.
We poke.
So okay, so she cannot do it virtually. The goal in book one, I'm just like
Yeah.
trying to frame this. Goal is to move to London, go through this interview process, and by the end, she will find out, is she going to be in this internship or not?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So let's and then what else, like if you had other conflicts underneath that. So while she's applying for the internship, we have Liam who causes some problems for whatever reason. What else is going on?
She at one point gets with this other guy, I think roughly midway through the book,
Okay.
and he kind of does a number on her, and that essentially just kind of like makes her spiral in a way where she's behaving like, leading up to it, she's like drinking more, she's going out more, and she's kind of like facing more issues of like, well, maybe I'm not as confident as I thought I was. Like, why am I homesick? Why is this like gorgeous hot neighbor that I hate but I'm friends with, that like I feel like suddenly I don't feel like I'm worthy? Like, all these
Yeah.
issues that she kind of like didn't deal with start coming up, and then a guy does a doozy on her, and then she just like kind of spirals out from there, trying to grapple with herself. But as she's spiraling, she's like realizing like she does really have feelings for Liam, so she's trying to get over one while still having feelings for the other. And
Okay.
then at the end, she's like, all you boys suck.
Perfect. Okay. I'm so glad I asked you that because that gives me insight into how she's going to be challenged by the plot and how she's going to change.
Yeah.
Because, in the beginning, you have a little flavor of this in your opening pages where it's like she's going to London no matter what. She has to leave friends, leave her family, whatever. We could potentially amp up she's confident. She knows she's going to make it on her own
Yeah.
piece just because that's what falters. So just something to think about. And I'm taking notes if you can hear or
Thank
see me typing.
God. Yeah, I see you doing
Um,
something. I
yeah.
was thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to, obviously I'm gonna re-listen to this, but
Yes. So one thing to think about after all of that you just said, we don't really get a ton of flavor of that in the query,
no, we do not. Not at
which
all.
is, yeah, which is like, a problem, but also kind of fun because now we can reframe it, take Liam's point of view out, and we can start it by saying, like, some of your opening here is really good. Like, so this is Olivia. She moves to London. She's feeling confident. Her dreams are within reach. Like, all she has to do is 3 interviews.
Yeah.
And the internship she's been wanting is hers. Like, show us that she's confident. And then we can use the boys as they get in the way. So like, you could even say something like determined to focus only on work and, being a mod, because is she going to get citizenship or anything?
At the very end of, or no. So I'm
Okay.
going to spoil book 2.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I mean, at this point, it's like so long. By the time like the second book hopefully gets
Everyone will
published,
forget.
it'll forget / like who knows what changes.
Yeah.
But as of right now, one of the big things in book 2 is that she doesn't get the internship and has to go home. And at that point, her and Liam are together, and that's like part of the breakup.
Okay. So you could say something like, determined to be the model implant from America and get this job, whatever, or this internship. Basically she has no free time to focus on anything, especially boys or whatever.
Yep.
And then we say like, but she has this really cute neighbor and then this other guy like introduce him somehow. We don't need to get into Liam's perspective because from the big picture, he's a complication to her plot.
Yeah.
So, and just in the query, we're just talking about that. We can keep his perspective in the draft for now.
Yep.
So then we can say like, because you have this part here, like they become friends and they can't deny their attraction, things like that. So we want to use that as something that kind of pulls her off that main thread. So like, she's unable to do this. And like, how does that then affect her applying for the internship? What's like her all is lost moment, the lowest point for her in terms of the internship? Like it all needs to be in terms of the internship, not in terms of her relationship.
I think
if it's women's fiction.
Yeah. Oh, you bring good points. So I kind of want it to be back and forth of like, points when she's feeling low is like when she succeeds in the like she gets advanced, right? Or times when she's feeling super confident. Like I kind of want it to be like a dynamic between these two things
Yeah.
where like, oh, also important for the internship. In true Olivia, type A fashion, she does like all this research on what each piece is. And there's a new person in charge of the internship program. So therefore, every single thing is nothing like she was prepared for.
That's awesome. Okay, so that needs to go in there too, like, because you're going to set her up in the first paragraph as like, she's confident, she's done all the research,
Mm-hmm.
she just needs to move here, be the model citizen, do all the things, check off the boxes. Then she meets, or I would start, then she learns someone new has taken over and nothing is what she expected, whatever. She meets her, hot neighbor. There's this other guy. Like, I would just start kind of layering in the things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can say like, just when she thinks she has it all, the guy, the internship in the bank, like, what is that all is lost moment? And then how does that lead to a question of exactly what you're saying? So like, is she going to choose one or the other, or is she going to sell her soul for the devil or whatever?
So the all is lost moment, that's like almost like climax for me in here. Is that okay? Like, or
it depends.
So there's like various levels of all is lost, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, she's so all again, spoiler away here, people. So the devastating event for her is that she's very not naive. She's inexperienced, right? She's never, like, I make that kind of clear in the first chapter. Like, she just doesn't have the romantic experience that others may or may not have at the time. And the second interest, like, not Liam, but the second interest, they've been dating. She finally like hypes herself up. They have sex and he immediately kicks her out of the house, out of his place. And she's like, can't get home. Like, the tubes are closing. She's scared. It's a dangerous situation for her. And that's a moment where she's like, I never felt worthless, but now I do. Like, that was like oh, now I feel worthless, like, type of thing. And so from there's like moments of dissent from that. And then all to culminate to this event where she tries to like kind of almost get him back. And then is like, this is a huge mistake. I shouldn't have even done this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think it's interesting because you're talking about the guy a lot, right? So we're still in romance territory, which at any point, feel free to stop me and be like, you know what? Maybe we are writing a romance, because that's okay too.
Well, that's the thing, because it doesn't end with them together. I thought it was a romance. I know. I enjoy that, like, I enjoy the fact that it's not like always happy. And I feel like I read amazing and incredible books, like I read Tessa Bailey, I read all these like fantastic authors, and it's like, that's awesome. But like, when I write, I just kind of make it more complex, and I'm like, why does
we all do?
But
it's not
I
just
love
you.
romance too, and then it's like has to be about, but I also can't write a romance without a woman experiencing things and going through her own issues. So identity crisis.
The thing with romance too is like, sometimes we all think of romance and we think of Hallmark, but there's like shades of romance. So we can make this a romance story. And I think this is like, to me, this is the root of all your struggles, is like, what is it? Right. So if it's a women's fiction, you're going to have to make some changes. Mm-hmm. If it's a romance, you're going to have to make some changes.
Yeah.
So I think like, how do you feel about that? Like, for example, my brain kind of triggered on we don't know whether she gets the internship or not in this book. And I'm like, but should we?
No, so she does get the internship. So she does get the internship.
Loses it in book 2.
Yeah, exactly. She gets the internship, but in book 2, that's when they find out if she was selected as an employee post.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's good. And so then to me, I'm like, that's the climax then of book 1, is like finding out she got it. And then it's like, how do you feel now that you got it? Is it everything you thought it was going to be?
Yeah.
So that's fine. But that still means we're probably going to need to make some changes, and for example, how would you feel if like you got down the road and an agent said to you, this is a women's fiction story, I think we should take out Liam's perspective? Like, how would you feel?
I'd be so sad. But
would you do it?
I do anything to get published. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. I don't know. I guess I would, but I feel like if I do, he comes off as a lot more confusing because I think he's a pretty interesting character too.
Yeah. Sometimes that's good though, because I'm thinking of like some of Colleen Hoover's books, right? It's like we don't understand why the guy's moody. We don't understand why he's shut down to love, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's part of what pulls us forward in the story.
Yes.
So sometimes it's not a bad thing. I'm just feeling you out on like what would be a deal breaker for
No,
you.
this is great. I mean, again, I don't know. It's I'm
Yeah. Well,
still
the other thing I saw
figuring it
this
out.
happen to a writer I'm working with. She had a very similar story to yours, and she has an agent now, and the agent was like, you know what? I took this to an editor at a big publishing house, and they said we would totally take this if you basically turn down the love a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because she had literally like such a similar situation. It was mainly about the love, and there was a work component.
Yeah.
And they said, we just want you to turn up the work a little bit and turn down the love a little bit. So keep both.
Yeah.
But would like that be a deal breaker for you?
I mean, if I had a major publishing company, I dance. I like they'd
Yeah.
say dance for me, and I'd say which kind, what genre.
Yeah.
So
That's how this other writer is too. And I think that's totally fine to be that
Yeah.
way. It's just kind of knowing like what are you unwilling to do?
Yeah, that's fair. I guess okay. So things that I would be unwilling to do is to like Olivia's journey is like the most important thing for me. I think that
Okay.
her journey with career and the men is integral, is important to this whole thing because I think that it's a lot of times it's like kind of mixed bag, like I think women can feel confident in some places and not confident in either. And I love I like the discrepancy between the two.
Yeah.
And now a quick ad break.
We'll be right back. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. One thing I've noticed in my career is that the more anxious I get, the more I compare myself to my peers and my colleagues at work and judge my productivity against theirs.
I absolutely hate that we always end up comparing ourselves to others.
I don't know how or why it's ingrained in us at a young age, but I'm over it.
That's why I'm so happy to say that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
We've talked about it on our show a lot. Jack and I have both been to therapy. We are big supporters of therapy and encourage everyone to give it a shot.
We've both been going to therapy for, oh my God, I think 10 years now?
Yep, that's about right.
Okay.
What I love about therapy is that I've learned so many tools to help me manage my anxiety in the workplace, in my relationships, and in all other life circumstances. I'm not perfect, but I'm better than I was 10 years ago.
Amen to that.
That's why if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, convenient, flexible, and fits with your schedule. So if you're like me, you do the daring thing and have therapy during your lunch break.
So please stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/booktalk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/booktalk, BOOKTOK. As we all know, Amy, I am a superhero because thick thighs save lives. However, those thighs sometimes need a little extra love, and Lumi has been so helpful for getting that inner friction taken care of there.
I'll be honest, I've used Lumi in my pits, under my tits, between my hips. Actually, it's really my thighs, but close enough. What's even better is that Lumi was created by an OBGYN who saw firsthand how normal BO was and is constantly misdiagnosed and mistreated.
The fact that an OBGYN is the one who created Lumi is what actually makes me feel a lot more comfortable of using it down there. Because you don't want to just put anything there.
No, that is like the number one rule.
I was also really surprised of all the places that you could put Lumi. You have your under boob, you can have your butt crack, you can have your vulva, you can use it on your feet.
It blows my mind that Lumi has been clinically proven to block odor all day and control your BO for up to 72 hours.
I can't stand being sweaty or smelly. You know how I feel about smelling like an outside person.
I was just telling my partner yesterday how much you hate smelling like an outside person.
Lumi is baking soda free and paraben free, and the pH balance is safe for use below the belt.
You can choose from a variety of fresh, bright scents like clean tangerine, lavender sage, or toasted coconut, and nothing has made me more happy than my lavender body soap going with my Lumi lavender sage scent deodorant.
Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like a mini wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. Use code BOOKTALK for 15% off your purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's BOOKTALK at LUMEDEODORANT.com. And that's promo code BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
The sounds of the season can often sound like this.
So, when are we getting some grandkids?
But with Hilton's Season to Stay sale, they could sound a bit more like this. Or this. Stay and save up to 20% off when you book before January 5th at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay. Minimum 2-night stay required. Excludes luxury and all-inclusive properties. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, and so talk to me about the climax. So we know she's going to get the internship. We know there's going to be feelings around that one way or the other. At that point, what's going on with the guys?
So at this point, she kind of orchestrates this moment where she knows where Guy 2 is going to be. His name's Giannis, but I feel like that's weird.
Giannis.
Yeah, he's Greek. So she knows where Giannis is going to be, and she's just like, I need closure. Like, I just need to see him. I just need some kind of closure. And she doesn't really tell anyone, but like, she knows that he's going to be at this restaurant, so she gets all dolled up. At this point, there's this like one woman who is Gianna, who's like the like fake friend, one of the villains of the story. And so Olivia's already kind of accepted personally that like she has feelings for Liam. She just needs to have this closure before she can like really move forward with Liam. And circumstances happen. Of course, Liam shows up. There's like a party she gets invited to. Giannis is there, Liam's there, Gianna's there, and she goes off to go just settle things like with Giannis, and she hears what she needs to hear, but she's also like, I don't need this. Like, this was stupid. I don't need it. And then when she goes out to the living room, Liam and Gianna are hooking up on the couch because he's like thought that she was off and he's drunk and all this stuff. So things just kind of like erupt from there, and she gets food poisoning.
Oh my God.
That's really funny.
You manifested it.
I really did. But like, so then there's like kind of the aftermath, right? And then she just kind of has a lot of reflection of like, I let for the last however many months these guys dictate my actions, or like I reacted this way because of these guys type thing.
Yeah.
And then she hears that she gets the internship, and
Okay.
she's just like, you know what? Like, man ain't shit type thing. Like, it's just kind of like, I'm going to do my thing. Liam, we're still friends. Like, nothing happens for them. They don't even kiss in this book. It's a lot of tense moments. And meanwhile, he is just kind of like reeling with like, now she's off and dating and doing her own thing and is getting ready for this internship. And he's just kind of like, shit, what did I do?
Right. I blew it.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that you said she finds out after about the internship, because that was going to be my next question is like, which one comes first? Because that's going to help us say what kind of story it is. Okay. So it feels like I like that we're building towards, does she or does she not get it?
Mm-hmm.
The men kind of get in her way. So does this fake friend in a way. So does, probably just living in a new place and things like that.
Yeah.
And the person who took over the internship program and is changing the rules. So that thread of will she get it or won't she get it needs to be the focus of the query.
Yeah. Okay.
And right now it's about her and Liam.
Yes.
Which is fair because before it was targeted as a romance, right?
Yep.
So what I would do if I were you, I would start with the opening paragraph of like, this is Olivia. This is the beginning of her character arc. She's confident. She has her list, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She moves to London, finds out things with the internship have been changed. Also, there's these two guys, blah, blah, blah. And then you probably want to end the second paragraph, or like, even if you do the next, 2 paragraphs, end it with kind of like everything's blown up.
Yeah.
And, like, what do we want the question to be? Because you said you want to kind of pose her between like men's stuff and work stuff.
Yeah.
So is it like what is, I guess, like, is she going to face a decision of, I can pursue this and lose the man, or I can pursue the man and lose the work, or like.
Yeah. So she's going to pursue it. I think what she kind of gives up is the fantasy of Liam in this one. I think she kind of gives up on this, like, so she thinks book 2. But she kind of is like, has this attitude of like, well, you know what? Like, I'm not going to be invested in men who aren't interested in me. Like, I'm only going to be invested in things that are about me, like this internship wants me. This super elite, thousands have applied. I got that. So why am I going to spend the same energy on things that don't want me?
Right. Okay. Because what we want, like, try to aim for some kind of question at the end that shows the stakes. So like, will she try to reconcile things with Liam at kind of like at the expense of being the best employee or intern she can be, or like something like that, because it shows, or you can do it because if we don't want to give away the total ending of does she get the internship or not, we want to show a question that shows it's in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. So like, when
this is kind of like giving me like a moment where like maybe during one of her spiral moments, like is she late turning something into them? Like, exactly. Is it like I can see where what happens with them impacts, like, exactly. I should let it impact her internship and make her truly panic.
And I was thinking when you were saying that the guy kicks her out and she feels worthless and the tube's not working, I was like, oh my God, is she going to be late for her interview? Like, that's exactly how to think about it. Because if you think about like threads, right? The thread with the internship is the thickest thread. So, and then everything else kind of gets wound around that.
Yeah.
Or it pulls the thread up or down. Like, it basically pulls it off path. Mm-hmm. So we want everything to touch on that internship thread, and because that's her goal, right? And then in the beginning, I know there's a character that says like, go have fun. And she does that, but it's like at the expense of her goals.
Yeah.
And so I think she's trying to figure out, how do I do both? Can I do both? So yeah, exactly what you just said. Make sure it affects that. And then we want to show, like, in the midst of this spiral, she's kind of lost track of the ability to control all these things.
Mhm.
And we're left wondering, like, what is going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the result going to be?
And I feel like it's also important to note that, like, her body image issues is going to be, like, a huge part throughout the whole thing. Like, you know, I think the way that she treats her body and views herself is going to be some of, like, you know, some of the reasons why things don't pan out in the very beginning with her and Liam is because she gets kind of caught in her own, like, I don't want to be seen naked. Like, I
Right.
can't be with this guy naked. And then later on, you know, we can kind of see her almost like abusing her body, where it's not full eating disorder, but she crash diets trying to,
Right.
you know, get ready to have this run in with Giannis. And then, you know, but then there's like these subtle moments where Liam's like, you know, make sure she eats, or, you know, doesn't, like, you know, let her go too hard at the gym and stuff.
Yeah.
So like her body image stuff, like, is a big through line also.
Yeah. And it's kind of a temperature of how she's doing in a
Yeah.
way. So I would put something like that in there too, like very small, but you could say, like, in the opening paragraph, when she's a list maker, she's
Mhm.
done the research, like she's healthier, physically healthier than ever,
Yeah.
you know, and just set it up where, like, she thinks she's ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can use that kind of physical decline or like confidence decline in the part where it's like all these things are crashing down. She's been binge eating, or she's been whatever
Mhm.
that symptom is.
I think moving to a new city and gaining weight when you like just kind of like almost the like graduate version of the freshman 15 type of thing. Like, you just kind
Yeah.
of you're drinking, you're eating, and you're just like, this isn't what I normally do.
Especially as you like go on dates and make
Yeah.
friends and all these things, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I think what you're kind of showing is like you can have this super focused work life and then not enjoy the fruits of everything else.
Mhm.
Or you can have there's three options. Like, or you can have like the romance of your dreams potentially, and then you pick the wrong person because of XYZ and
Yeah.
things explode. Ideally, you're kind of in the middle somewhere where it's balanced.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so, and that's probably where she's going to get in book 2, maybe.
Yes.
We won't spoil that,
Mhm.
but so yeah, I would just refocus this whole thing on her.
Mhm.
And I bet you'll feel like the feeling you want when you think about her story. If you take Liam's perspective out of the query,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you put in some of these other, cause you'll have room, put in some of these other things about, like, you know, she's trying really hard. The internship is crazy, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And then see what you come up with there.
Yeah. No, I mean, already talking to you makes me excited about it again.
Oh, good.
Because I was
Good. That's
definitely
what I
at a
want.
point of like just feeling like I was like, I can't even look at it. Like, I'm so mad at it, and it like it just it helps. I'm already like,
Well, it's
feeling
hard
good.
when you're in your little silo and you don't know what to do, right? Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to point out is in your query, you said that this is a duology. And no matter what kind of series you're writing, agents always want to know, is this book complete?
Mhm.
So usually the advice is if there's series potential,
Yeah.
all they care about is book 1. So you don't need to mention it's a duology. You could say there's potential for a follow-up or,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, but you could also just take that out.
Okay.
Because technically you're going to answer the question of the story. Does she get the internship or not?
Yeah.
Right. And we want it to feel like it's complete, because and the reason why
Mhm.
is that sometimes, let's say that this gets picked up and you publish it, it might work and they might like want more books, or it might not work. And
Yeah.
that, you know, they're not going to buy it based on the fact that it's a duology, and like, they don't care
Yeah. Yeah.
at this point until there's proof. So you can always say there's potential for a follow-up or whatever, or just totally leave it out.
Okay.
And the other part, so you said slowmance, and that's fun too. You especially can play up on tropes because you know all the tropes, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
use that somehow in your query. Like, what are the other tropes?
Mhm.
And put some of them in here because that's fun. And then also, let's see what else I wrote here. So, there was this part that says, after one of the worst nights of her life, Olivia is forced to face down her insecurities and decide if she likes the woman she's becoming. So I highlighted this, and it's fun to talk about for anyone listening, because thought exercise, everyone who's listening, think about, what do we think Olivia's, we kind of know, but right. But
Yeah.
if you just said someone has the worst night of her life, what does that mean? If we're forced to face down our own securities, what does that mean? Right? We don't really know. Who is the woman she's becoming? We don't really know. Right? So
Yeah.
we could all interpret that in a very different way. And even though you might actually know all these answers, the agent's like, does she know these answers? Because it's reading really vague.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that you're saying that because, like, I'm, I wrote it and I was like, yeah, I see what you read it. I'm like, yes, that's exactly. And then as you're saying that, I'm like, okay, so no one knows. That is fair.
Because it's true that that's what she's doing, right? But we don't know what those specifics are like. So this could read any story where the woman's doing all these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer Jack's story about Olivia.
Yeah.
So when in doubt, always be specific. Like you can say, we know what her specific insecurities are. There's maybe the internship's in jeopardy. She's got body issues. Who's the woman she's becoming? Someone that puts work or love in front of work, someone that gives up her goals for guys.
Yeah.
Like that makes it so much more interesting.
Yes.
So there's a lot of other things I left in the query, just things for you to think about, little things to tweak and things like that. Do we want to talk about your opening pages?
I'm on this journey with you. Yeah. Whatever. I can open those up.
Yeah. If you don't mind opening those up. And as you do that, Jack sent me 8 pages. Like we said earlier, sometimes agents will only look at 3 to 5. I've even seen like in one random case, an agent just wanted the first page. And they want to see, like, do I get sucked in? Do I think this is interesting? Do I have questions when I read this? And because questions make readers want to read forward. So that's what I was looking for, looking at Jack's pages. And I have in the side here, if you're watching the YouTube version, a lot of little comments, like, little nitpicky comments or things where maybe...
It was not nitpicky. It was like, made sense.
Okay, well, little things were like sometimes Jack might have said something and then said something similar a few lines later. So we're not going to focus on those. But basically, do you want to give people like a really quick overview of what happens in this chapter?
Yeah, so this is Olivia leaving home. Her and her mom are getting ready to head up to the airport, LAX, and she is getting ready. Like, she's like literally about to walk out the door, just kind of giving a nice little reminiscent moment of like, okay, this is the only home I've known. This is the only anything I've known. And before she is able to leave, childhood friend and family friend come to say goodbye one more time. And she finally, once she gets to the airport, she gets some advice on how to handle her time in London. We don't know that she's going to London. We just know at this point that she's leaving, she's getting her master's, and she's worked really hard for this. We pick up that her mom is a little bit more, scattered brain, a little bit, I kind of like she had to be an adult sometimes for her mom. And then at the very end, that's when we find out that she's going to London.
Yeah.
Did I do a good job summarizing?
You did a good job. Yep. That's great. So one thing, like big picture wise, we'll only spend a second on this, but usually the advice is like, when's the latest possible time the story could start? So there's a lot of options for where you could start. You could start here. You could start like when she gets to the airport. You could start as she's on the flight, landing, as she's been there for a week and she's like fumbling, or she could be on the phone with Gil and he could still say this message. And she's like, I just, I've got it. I'm going to take this tube to this one and this one, showing some of these same things. So we always want to have like, okay, there are options in mind. What's the latest possible time we could start? Like, what's the day her life starts to change? Mm-hmm. And technically, like, yeah, she's going to London, right? So that it's fair that her life's changing this day. So keep that in mind. We'll come back around to that in a second. So the main thing I wanted to point out to Jack was, okay, what do we want readers to be questioning or wondering at the end of this opening chapter? Ideally at the end of like your first 3 pages, what are they? And not saying your chapter has to be over by 3 pages, but what are we questioning? Mm-hmm. Why are we turning the page to read forward? And even when I got to the end, I was like, okay, like part of me is curious, like, how's this going to go for her? If I was curious about some details, like what is she doing?
Yeah.
But I was like, is that enough for me to not close the book and go make lunch?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it enough to make me want to stay up an hour later, Yeah. And I don't think so yet.
Yeah.
So the reason I said what I said earlier about like, we wanted to start on kind of a very interesting moment, very interesting day. And that could be today. So it could be this day that we already show her. Yeah. We want to have some kind of questions come up that reflect the big picture. So for her, whether it's what you have in chapter 1 or a different period of time, what do we want? Like, what would be your ideal question a reader's asking at this point? I know it's like a giant question,
No,
but
I know. I mean, okay, so what do I want the readers to be questioning? That is a great question. I guess it would be just kind of, I mean, it's so, now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know, it's stupid for what I was like. I guess I'm thinking about what I currently would be questioning, which is like, what happens in London? But that's not enough.
it's a good piece of it.
Yeah,
for
but
sure.
I guess it would just kind of, based off of like what you and I were talking about when it comes to this internship and making that like a bigger piece, cranking that up, I guess it would be wanting them to be invested in her and this internship and seeing if she gets it or if she actually is as equipped as she's saying that she is.
Yeah. And so like let's take her out of this scenario and just put her in something different for fun, a thought exercise. So imagine like we meet her, she's on the phone with Gil who's saying make sure you have fun and mom's there in the background and whatever. And maybe she's looking in the mirror and she's kind of pinching the tummy roll a little bit, you know, and she's trying to, cover up a little more or something that's showing us she's a little insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she's running late and she's like, I want to get to the interview before or the whatever pre-interview mixer early so that she's already got plans, right?
Yep.
So you could show a lot of the same stuff just she's already there.
Yeah.
She's, we could use the like pinching of the tummy roll or whatever to kind of pique readers' interest, like what's going on there. She could even, this is so weird, but I'm making it up. Like she probably because you had a kitty in your recording area earlier, but like she leaves her apartment in London and there's a little kitty on the front side table and she touches its nose as good luck. And she's like, we're going to change our life or like whatever.
Yeah.
She's got this idea of how it's going to work. And the more specific we can get about that, the more readers are going to be like, oh my God, but is it?
Yeah.
Is it going to change your life? And like, what's going on with your tummy? And why is Gil telling you to have fun? Like, do you not have fun? Are we worried about you? So you can kind of like layer so much stuff like that into a scene.
Yeah.
And like opening scenes are very hard, right?
Yeah.
And then, depending on what you do too, we want to think about the conflict because conflict piques questions. Mm-hmm. So in your opening now, the friends come over. That's kind of the first unexpected thing. Yeah. And it's not actually like that bad, right? Because we know she has time to get to the airport. She has extra time. So like in theory, it's okay. Although
it's not even conflict. It's like all within her plan.
Well, it kind of is because she's like, she doesn't want to get emotional about it, right? Yeah. Mom's a little bit stressful. That's conflict, but it's not like super exciting. We'll say that, right?
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair.
And I don't say that in a mean way. It's just like, we really want to poke at these opening pages so that you can get what you want.
Yes.
So it's said with love. So like if a great example that I know you're probably not going to do because we probably don't meet these guys that quick, but imagine she's, running out the apartment, touching the kitty's nose and saying, our life's going to change. And she's rushing to the subway. She grabs a baguette or whatever on the way. And as she's like, doing everything super fast, she pays whatever, she bumps into this guy literally.
Yeah.
And it's like the Giannis, right? Or whatever. And like, so imagine at the end of a chapter like that, they talk and he's like, it picks up her bag from the floor and it's like their eyes meet and she's like, oh my God, crap, I got to go.
Yeah.
Think about how many questions we have at the end of that chapter.
Can I tell you the meet cute with Liam?
Yeah.
Okay. So the meet cute currently, so her mom helps her move to London and she's just kind of like, we're about to go on vacation again, like back to her, like, we're about to go on vacation. We have to leave. Like, I only have so much time with my mom before she takes off home and she's already, and they're about to travel around the UK. And she had, she's just kind of like in her own world.
Yeah.
Their meet cute is from Liam's perspective. And he just kind of comes in and just sees like hot mom, hot daughter type of thing. And so he's like trying to kind of be charming and is like, hello. And she just like completely dismisses him. Like, she just doesn't want to talk to him. Chapter or so later, she realizes like she kind of misses this thing called Freshers Week, which a lot of UK universities have, where you just go and you get to meet other students and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She skipped all that to go be with her mom, and she realizes like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have skipped that. Goes to a pub quiz, walks up to a table and is like, can I just sit with you guys? And doesn't recognize him. And he just kind of gets more and more mad until finally she blurts out like, oh my God, you're my Liam. And then it's like, no, I'm not. It's, you know, it's like, you're my neighbor, just trying to like smooth it over. So that's she doesn't recognize him. It makes him mad. And then when she does recognize him, he kind of gets pissy, and then she gets pissy back with him.
Yeah. And so imagine like if we kind of merged some ideas here. It's like she's talking to Gil and mom or whatever, and like feel free to take or leave this idea. But just as an example, she's talking to Liam or mom. She's like rushing out because maybe in the beginning of the conversation that we didn't see, Gil convinced her to go to this mixer, and she's been like trying to get dressed and hurrying, and she's talking to them.
Yeah.
She meets Liam on accident, and then like part of the mixer, that whatever is that pub thing. So that's where she's rushing to.
Yeah.
And then Liam's there, and it's kind of like, you know,
you didn't want to talk to me earlier. Now you want to talk to me now, or
right. And imagine if that was like the opening scene or one of your opening scenes. And then the question is like, okay, we're really rooting for you to get this internship. Gil's really worried about you. You've been kind of pinching your tummy, like what's going on there? And you met this really cute guy that's your neighbor.
That's
like we are so in.
Yeah. I can see that, where it's like, yeah, you have you cover the body stuff, you cover internship, the like somewhat like, you know, friends and family from home being worried, and then you meet boy. That's like 4 things that you have listed.
And typically in a story that's a true romance, we wouldn't want to do something necessarily. Some stories we get away with this, but we wouldn't want to do that in the first chapter usually, because we kind of want to build a little bit till we meet the guy. But because we're saying this is women's fiction, that totally works.
Yes.
So something to think about, because I know that's
am I back to women's fiction? Like, that's where I'm like, where do you think I land? I'm going to take a sip of water real fast.
I think right now the reason you can't decide is because you're asking the draft to tell you what it is. I think you're in a position where it could be either, and you need to tell it what is your vision, what do you want it to be, and we will make the draft match.
Yeah.
And this is like, just so you're not alone in this predicament. I see writers who do this all the time, and it's kind of like you just want what you've already written to work. So you're, go ahead.
You know what? You've inspired me. You know what? I'm looking over here at like, because like I'm in the setting where we normally record, and I'm looking at all these books, and something that my mom said to me, where I was telling her, I was like, I guess like I wrote women's fiction, like, you know, like it doesn't have a happy ending. It has all this other stuff. And my mom said like, oh, well, that makes like, she's like, yeah, you know, you want to write what you read. And I told her, I'm like, I don't want to read women's fiction. I want to read romance. Like, I don't read women's fiction. I love romance. I love the conflict of will they, won't they. I love the, you know, the hurt, and I like the struggle with it. And sometimes I like it high levels, you know, and sometimes I like it a little bit more meaty. But like, I do not read women's fiction. That's not what I enjoy to read as much. I mean, but I also haven't like gone on a journey either with it.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So what if we said that you're, you know, it's fine, we explored women's fiction. And what if we said that you're writing a romance that isn't like, it's not surfacey, because some are, and some readers like that and they want a quick beach read or whatever. That's fine. Everyone has their place. But what if yours focuses, you know, because all romances, they do focus on character change to an extent. And your volume dial of that can just be turned up. And I think that's great.
Yes. And thank you. And so I think where I am adamant that this book, they don't end up together. I mean, and again, unless someone tells me, hey, you really need to make this fix it.
They're probably going to tell you that. I'm just going to say it. Because if it's a romance, like you said, you want the will they, won't they.
And that's my struggle, right? Is like, I love romance. I love reading romance, but I love the will they, won't they, but I also love her journey.
She can have her journey with being with him, or like, is there a scenario where she gets with Giannis? Because, okay, so here's a thought, like, you know, in the Sarah J. Maas books, and this, I'm like, they're old enough now where I can just talk about spoilers.
Yeah.
So Selena,
Tamlin is the fake love interest.
Well, right, and then like Selena also, she has
Farrah.
No, I know, but in the other ones, in Throne of
Throne of
Glass.
Glass. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so she has Kale and Dorian, right? And then
Yeah.
she eventually gets with Rowan. So like, would that kind of scenario do anything for you?
You've interested me.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking is like, even as a reader, you want to know, do they get together or not? Right? So like,
Yeah.
you have to give readers what they want. You can do it in whatever way you want. So in the first book, maybe she will say in air quotes picks Giannis or
Yeah.
whatever, because for whatever reason she thinks it's going to allow her to have like, you know,
That closure or whatever.
Closure, or like, you know, maybe she knows he's not that serious, so I can pick him and like work, you know, or do my internship, whatever her reasons are. We want to believe that. We want to believe there's a happily ever after.
Yeah.
Even if it's a happily for now, right? You know, so it's just something to think about, because I think you can't, and I'll say, like, of course, everyone can disagree with me, whatever, but you can't put this out in the market as a romance and then not have some version of happily ever after, even if it's a happily for now, from your perspective.
Yes.
And I think that's the tough part, because the ending you want doesn't match your genre.
I know. Can't we just can I just invent the Jack genre?
Well, then, so the other thing too is like, because there are like women's fiction and romance, there's things that blend and kind of overlap.
Yeah.
So like, I know you said Jamie Varen's main character energy.
That's what something that you recommended.
Yeah, and you listed that as a comp, right?
Yeah, I wasn't able to finish it, but I started a little bit of it, and then I just kind of put it in there because I was like, I'm going to switch these out because I still don't know my identity.
Okay, so when you finish that, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'll say there's really good character growth. How am I going to say this without spoiling what happens? Just when you finish it, think about like how you felt about this character's ability to grow and change versus what happens with the romance.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you want to write a book like that? Or do you want to write a book where there's no happily ever after? There's no like romance closure?
Because
I think like if you were self-publishing, you could choose your own adventure and see what happens.
But I don't want to self-publish.
If you're trying to fit it in a market that exists, I think you have to choose, you know, which bucket you're going to fit into. And either way, there's going to be a concession.
Okay.
Which I know is like not fun to hear, but
I know, but like, you know, this is what I need to hear. This is okay. Well, now I'm wondering, I'm like, is there any way that I could combine the first and second book?
Yeah. So
I was so like, this was the most.
I was going to ask you this.
You were like, I could feel you holding my hand as you said that. Yeah. Like,
yes. I was going to ask you this because I think sometimes when we're writing series, whether it's 2 books or 3 books, whatever, I see a lot of writers who they have to get the story out and they get it out in kind of a, like, I'll say linear way. And what I mean by linear is like in your opening chapter, we kind of have one thing happening, right? There's like one focus of the scene.
Yeah.
Where in a finished book, usually there's layers to a scene. Like when we were talking about earlier, she touches the kitty on the door out to the pub crawl, right? Like there's multiple things going on. So sometimes what happens in a series is it's like you can condense things and still fit everything. It's just we need to layer it more.
Okay.
And so like you could, because when I hear you say the stuff about Giannis, I'm like, that would be a great midpoint for her. Like a 1 book midpoint where it's like, you know, things seem great. And then it's like, we just bring her down, or it could be an all is lost.
Can I poke your brain a little bit? If you have to
poke or pick, you can't poke my brain, but you can pick it.
Okay. Can I pick? Okay. So in book 2, I like that villain more. It's a guy and he is very manipulative and gaslights her on being like kind of in an open relationship, despite that not being what she wants. Like
he's a love interest.
He's a love interest, and she gets with him, and it's very much, and she is romantically interested in him, but he kind of like gaslights her to be in an open relationship, despite that just not being her thing. But that's also like, well, no, that's like being mature, right? Like I'm an adult. Like this is my adult choice.
Yeah. Annoying.
Yeah. And he does that. He actually kicks, like he hears about what Giannis did to her, kicking her out in the middle of the night, and he's mad at her, like when they finally break up, and he manipulates her to reenact that moment. I can now see where I can potentially have this like thing that happened with, and it doesn't even have to be Giannis. It could be a thing that happened that hit my mic that like was a very intense thing for her that happened years ago and just kind of stuck with her versus seeing it happen, seeing it play out. God, Savannah, it's just, why are you making this a better book? Why are you making this is like, and that's much better. Like I see
when
that.
you say all that too, I'm like, this is getting really interesting. So the cool thing is also the kind of like crappy thing is that you have all of this figured out.
Yeah.
You have, do you have both books written?
I do. And I like there, and it's funny because like the friend who's been helping me edit, she was like, these are two separate books. Like the vibe is different. A lot of things are different. And I have so much fun with the second book, and it is a lot more romancy.
Yeah. Well, because we're building to that happily ever after.
Yeah.
So I like this idea, like you're saying, the Giannis or whoever that is in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then she kind of moves to London. She meets this guy that ends up gaslighting her. All the while, Liam's in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's pursuing this internship. Maybe, you know, there's drama with mom or whatever. And the
at this point, I can have her actually have the internship, because if I'm getting rid of book 2, because book 1 was trying to get the internship, book 2 is getting the internship. Now it's like, well, let's rush through. Let's kick that off.
Well, and imagine that opening if, like, let's say she spent the summer interviewing and now we're meeting her and she's on the way, or she's on the way to her first day at the internship or something.
Yep. Yep.
You know, like we're invested, but the thing, it sucks to have to like get rid of words, right? But also you've done all the thinking, you know how things are going to unfold, so it's not wasted.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not wasted. And there's things that I like a lot in the second book. And it's like, if I had to get rid of one, I would get rid of the things that happened in the first.
Yeah. And that you don't have to get rid of them. They could be backstory, right? They can be bonus chapters, a bonus novella for people when they subscribe to your email list.
Yes. Yes.
So one, just to like take you out of your situation, this writer I worked with a few years ago, she had 40 to 60,000 words, I can't remember, written of this draft. And she felt the same way as you. Like, I've got it figured out. I'm in love with it, blah, blah, blah. And I had to tell her like something similar, like, I think you need to start over. And I think here's why. Yeah. And she was like, not stoked on that idea. She did. And she ended up getting an agent and she, you know, all this stuff. So sometimes it's like, you know, the right answer, it's not going to feel good. Like it's not feeling good to get rid of words and combine things and things like that. But what if it's the thing that gets you what you want?
And you're right though. Like it's at the end of the day, and I hate using the term surface level versus non-surface level with romance books, because like I genuinely love and respect both. Like I do.
I agree.
There's, I wish there was a different terminology for it, but I can't write a surface level romance book. Like it's just not in my bones. Like I need it to have a lot more, you know, stuff behind it. But you're asking me, this is why we're doing this and you're helping me, but like I love romance, like, and I do want them to get together. And if that means like, what do I sacrifice? I don't want to sacrifice his point of view. I don't want to sacrifice their happy ending. I would rather sacrifice this ending than sacrifice those other parts. God, you're good.
Look how you brought us around to the beginning of the conversation when I said, what are your non-negotiables?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you found them, and now, okay, we know it's going to be romance. Book 1, you know, doesn't read like that. That's okay. We have a solution for how to make it read like that.
Yeah.
Your query was written the way it is because I think inside of you, you're like, I want this to be romance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to try to like reverse engineer things to make book 1's ending make sense. And we went the women's fiction kind of exploration, and now you're, I think it sounds like you're more certain of what you want to do.
Well, originally this was all one book, you know, but then I was like, I can't have 160 page book that, you know, that I am invested there. And I was like, all right, split right down the middle. This is the natural middle. And now it's like, you know, going through it where I don't need it to be a duology. Like it really doesn't. The book I want to write after this actually is a fantasy.
Cool.
I just want this. I'm like, I want this one and I want it out there because the story means a lot to me. So I get it. Like I see what you're saying. You made me see the light. Oh my God. This is
good.
Like,
And I
get
know
it.
it's hard, so, like, not to discount how it probably feels, but it probably feels like, but also exciting because 'cause
It's
you're like,
more
"I know what to
exciting
do."
than anything else
Yeah.
because, like I said, there's like moments in the second book that are very romancy. So
Yeah.
I hit some of the tropes. There I have
Good.
characters that I really enjoy in there, and I just was like sad to not see them for a long time. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, I like these guys. I like what happens here. And I like the idea of merging this and just kind of like, things that there are moments that I do like here, like you haven't seen. There's like a Halloween scene where
Yeah.
her and Liam almost get together, but that's the first time you see her pull back.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, you
sure
can
I
still
can.
use that.
Yeah, it's like I can still have that, or rather than this like Giannis in that scene, like that build up, have what's his name, and like have
Boring old compared to Giannis.
wait, I might have to bleep that name out because he's based off of a real person.
Okay, we'll bleep.
Oh,
Okay, so how are you gonna rephrase that? The guy that gaslights her.
the guy who gaslights her. Yeah. So I'm gonna like, I rather, again, his story is more interesting. The guy who
Yeah.
gaslights her.
Yes. Well, I mean, I kind of feel like you came naturally to your own conclusion, which I love. What I would do, so if I were you, I would make like a chapter by chapter or scene by scene
Yeah.
recap
Oh,
of
we're
what's
back.
in both books.
Yeah.
And just say like, okay, save a version and then make a new version of what does this look like as one book.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can manipulate that before you start manipulating your draft.
Yeah, you're right. Cause like I was already inserting things that like I didn't really want to do. Like her friend Betty came and visit, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was I was writing those chapters and I was dragging my feet. Like I just was like a lot of fill in later.
Yeah. You got to listen to your gut.
I do. Oh my God. And you're right. Like just lay out both, see what I like, see what I can do. Knowing that like like her story with the internship, like I still want it to reflect these like highs and lows. I think
Right.
there can still be those wins and losses in there.
Yeah.
But just kind of build it up a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think when in doubt, think about how you can pit like work stuff, internship stuff against romance, even if it's not like she's literally choosing between both things in every scene.
Yeah.
Just use one to complicate the other.
Yeah.
And you'll probably feel it starts to get really streamlined.
Not knowing anything more about my book, how long of a time frame do you think a story can be? Because the story originally took place over like I think 2.5, maybe 3 years.
Okay.
Because I do want to condense. I don't want it to be like a 6-month thing. I guess I'm gonna have to figure it out. I guess it'll still be like 1 year, maybe 1.5 years, just because I need the actual like graduation and the whole thing to take place. But
I think that's okay. I mean, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Like, I know this is a different genre, but like Harry Potter's a school year.
Yeah,
The Magicians was like 4 to 5 years in the first book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just depends what you want to do. And I think it's smart basing it around graduation and then saying, if I go like 6 months out in each direction, what does that look like? Do I want to start and end in summer or do I want to start and end in fall? Like, so I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think it's not like you have to have it be 6 months for any reason.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's more of like, I got like in my head of like, does 2 years make sense? Is that too much? Like, and I always kind of get, I'll have to rethink about this like breakup scene that they have. Cause I'm not a fan of like how they get back together necessarily.
Okay. The hard part, I think, is like, because I think in terms of holidays, I don't know why, but like, do you want to show 2 Halloweens?
Sorry, I didn't show.
Do you want to show 2 Halloweens? Do you want to show 2 Christmases? Or do you want to kind of bookend it so you're getting like, you start at Christmas, you end at Christmas, or you start at Halloween, you end at Halloween, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're fair. You're right.
So
2 Christmases for sure. I do like the idea of 2 Christmases because the second Christmas is like where they get together, and it is. I am very proud of that moment. So I am proud of that scene.
You could somehow start with like either she's already in London and going to miss Christmas with mom. you know, or like maybe mom's coming to visit. She's already been there. But like think about things like that and what you do and don't want to do. And you'll probably land on
how it
a
works
right
out.
timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess like also I always kind of like struggle with the whole third act breakup things because it's like there's only so much that when you're doing a book about relationships, like what are the various options that like, you know, boiling point, like I'm not going to have her
Yeah.
kidnapped. That's not like that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with this. And it makes sense for them to break up. Like, you know, her thing about him is like, you're going to commit or not. And I'm not like, after I dealt with this other guy, I'm not going to like,
Right.
which makes more sense with the guy who is gaslighting her to be in an open
That's
relationship where it makes more sense for her to be like, I can't do that again with someone who didn't want to commit with me. So you're in this or you're not in this.
Yeah. Think about with like breakup stuff too, because that's totally valid. What you just said works. Think about how like what she's done to either compensate for her insecurities around whatever, or what she's done for work or what she's done for the relationship can affect all the other relationships. So like, has she not called mom every Tuesday because she's been hanging out with Liam?
Yeah.
And because she's been hanging out with Liam, has it affected work? Or like, you know, at first maybe she wasn't calling mom enough because of the internship. Now it's because of that and Liam. So just think about how everything starts to kind of ping off each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll find it starts to become organic.
Okay. This was
no big deal.
No, this was great. It makes me happy for it again, to be honest. Like,
good.
I hadn't opened this document in a while and it just was like making me dread it more. And I think that it's like, I now that I'm in a place of like, I don't read women's fiction. I read romance. I'm in my happy space. That's what makes me happy. And
that's kind of what this is about too.
Yeah.
It's about relationships, self-love, other love, right?
And it could be more. It doesn't have like, and I'm fine. And I, you know, now that I'm in a place where it's like, okay, I accept that it's romance. However, I also accept that it's just going to be a romance that has a lot of other layers to it.
That's great. There are plenty of stories like that. So yours will be in good company. And when you finish main character energy, let me know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I will. I had to finish book club the summer book club. And I was like, okay, this is adding it to my TBR of life.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh my God. I think you broke my brain, but you healed it too.
I was going to say, did I fix it this time?
You healed my brain. Yes.
Good.
It is again, like, yeah, I'm happy that it is what it's going to be.
Good. That's all we ever want, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, keep me posted and let me know if we need to deep dive into anything else.
I absolutely will. And thank you so much. I, always love having you on here, even as I walk away with an existential crisis.
And lots of things on your to-do list now.
Yeah, but I'm excited to do it again.
Good.
You know, I'm excited to revisit, retackle, and just kind of like have the book that I actually love.
Good. That's important.
Yeah. I appreciate, thank you for suggesting and being willing to do this. And
yeah, thanks for sharing it too. Cause I know there's people out there that are maybe writing for the first time or they're struggling with their queries. And hopefully we got some, some things that we talked about with yours that can give other people aha moments or clarity and things like that. So
thank you. Yeah. And I really, it is like something that like, I do like, I don't know, some of my flowery language and some of my like descriptions. I think I say something in the first chapter of like, she likes the color of gray because it's just so opposite of what it is. Well, of course, Liam's eyes are going to be gray. Like, it's like, I like these little moments of like just stuff that I'm going to have and everything. So I like, not that this is not going to be an I'm like, now warning the listener, this will still have fun moments, but like, I do love more.
Yeah, it's still a romance. It's just going to have a layer of character depth. And again, not to say that other romances don't. There's a sliding scale, and yours is going to be on that side of the scale where we go deeper. We sometimes tackle a little bit darker things.
Yes.
And, that's
and I'm
great.
okay with that. All right. I think that's my home. I think that's where I live. Yeah.
Good. I love it.
Well, if listener, this episode is actually going to be on both our podcasts.
Yes.
So please go ahead and talk about yours a little bit?
If you want to come listen on mine, where I talk about writing fiction, editing fiction, publishing fiction, it's just called Fiction Writing Made Easy, and you can find it wherever you normally listen to this podcast.
And where can they find you on social?
I'm on Instagram at savannah.gilbo, and my website is just savannahgilbo.com.
Until next time, bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Bye. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.